Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Talk About It, Steph. I am your host, Stephanie, and we got lots to talk about. But before I even get into anything, I'm going to bring back the one, the only, Del Frey, who has been missing in action for a while. He left me, he kicked me to the curb, but he is back by popular demands. Hi, Del.
How you doing? It's good to be back. It's been a little while. It's been a hot minute. I kind of get busy sometimes. I know that you took a little bit of a break for 2 weeks, and then I always have my board meetings with the Frisco Dem Club on the first Wednesday of the month. So just a little bit tied up there, but I'm back now. It's good to be back.
Yay, glad you're back. Well, you had some great stand-ins that held it down, and but I'm glad to have you back there because we got a lot to talk about. Oh my goodness. So, first of all, how is your week going so far?
Busy at work, and just interesting and changing times. Particularly for me as a web developer, I am slowly watching AI grow, and it's changing the industry. It's really one of those things where for the longest time I always thought to myself, as a web developer, I thought one of these days going to be replaced by some young kid out of college who's like way cheaper than me, right? Now I'm realizing it's not going to be that. I would get replaced by a robot. Um, you know, thankfully, because I I work in the private sector, but I work in federal contracting. So I'm a private citizen, but the company that I work for basically has government contracts. And so, it's interesting because I have to have a security clearance and things like that, and because the government is so secure, you can't just use like ChatGPT or things like that. And on some projects, they flat out say, "Hey, you cannot use AI at all as you code." And of course, I'm just sitting there. It's like, "Hey, that's what I've been doing my entire career," because AI has only been a thing that recently has developed, particularly when it comes to writing code. Because I've been playing a little bit with Codex, which I believe is a competitor to, now I'm blanking on the name for it. But it's a Codex is a ChatGPT plugin that can literally write code for you, put it on your hard drive, run it, realize when it screws up because sometimes it does make mistakes, fix its mistake, and continue. It's a very powerful utility, and it's a type of thing where web development and computer programming in general kind of has been deprecated. It's a very powerful utility. It's quite impressive to see how far AI has come and how much it's consuming our water and resources and electricity. So, but that's a thing that
Yeah.
I know coming up in Texas too.
Well, we're gonna definitely have to talk about that. We're gonna have to have an episode and talk about the data centers that's taking over a lot of the small suburban communities. Matter of fact, they're trying to put a data center over in Fort Worth, so we'll see how that goes. I'm quite sure the people are not too pleased about that, having a data center over there that's going to be sucking up all the water and causing the electric bill to go up even higher. So I just feel like we shouldn't have it here. Have four here, but not have as many. It's like they're trying to put one in every town.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know they're actually trying to put one in the city of Denton as well, which is I feel like it's strange. Usually, I thought they tend to target internet areas that have good internet access, but areas that are more rural because the land tends to be more cheaper. So, yeah, no, it's particularly an issue in Texas because we've already had water scarcity issues as it is. When I was running to be a state senator in the last cycle, there was a huge point of contention in the Wichita Falls area where they nearly ran out of water already, right? Like they have Shepherd Air Force Base up there, they have two universities, and their economy is kind of stagnant. Like it's not diving down, but it's not going up either. And so, if they felt like if they did run out of water, that might be like a nail in the coffin, if you will, for their local economy. And so they were saying, hey, we need to build this new lake. There's a new lake uh, that would be called Lake Ringgold, should it be made. But it was discovered after analyzing the surface of Texas, they realized, oh, if we create this Lake Ringgold by damming off the Red River, we're going to flood a whole bunch of people out of their houses and or take some land away from people. So that means they would have to use eminent domain to get those individuals out of there, which of course the farmers did not appreciate that very much. So it became a huge point of contention. We have these water scarcity issues as it is already. The data centers is just going to be yet another layer on top of that. So I could tell you it was interesting seeing the arguments that was presented. What I was saying back then was I was saying, hey, look, by the way, one thing that we should know about creating new lakes, like, yes, we have water insecurity issues in Texas, but when we create a new lake, you see, Texas is notoriously flat, and a lot of our lakes are very, very shallow. And the larger the surface area you have that's exposed to the sun, the more water evaporation that you get. So yes, it's cheaper to create new lakes where it is possible, but it's actually not necessarily the most efficient. The best way to go about it is to take the massive surplus that we very much do have in Texas and invest that into water reservoirs that are either underground or somehow shielded from the sun, or silting water out of Lake Arrowhead. Or another thing too is that we don't necessarily always run out of water per se. We just don't have water in the right place at the right time. And so water transportation is something that we need to take care of because we got a lot of leaky pipes. We're losing a lot of water just from leaky pipes alone. So, and I know that that's something that Clayton Tucker, who I think is running for the agricultural position, I know that was something that he was talking about as well.
Yes.
So yeah, anyway, sorry for rambling on. I know we kind of went off tangent there because I'm supposed to ask you how your week was going since we started with that.
You know what? I'm tired. I'm just going to straight up tell you, I have been busy nonstop since I came back from the convention. And I'm looking forward to having a day or two off to where I can actually rest and rest my brain because there's so much that is going on and so much that we have to go and do, and it's so much stuff that's going on. It's ridiculous, and I know I just repeated myself. I'm just sitting up here thinking that we're going to talk about one of the hot topics today about the young 18-year-old that passed away, and we're going to definitely talk about that. And also, Dell, you in April were at the county commissioner speaking. So I definitely want to talk about that because that was very interesting.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. It's
So
really
we're gonna
important to.
definitely talk about the need kind of why.
Oh, sure, sure. I'm just gonna do a quick audio.
Can
You
you
can
hear me?
still hear me,
Okay.
right? Okay.
Okay. Now I know a lot of y'all have heard the news because I heard it, and I first of all, that man Ken Passam, who happens to be Texas AG, was found on 4th of July overseas in London, allegedly. But he was seen over there. Now, why are you over there and we're supposed to be celebrating 250 years here? Make that make sense. This man keeps going and going and going. He's like the energy rabbit that just keeps going and won't stop. So not only has he been spotted on several different occasions with his new woman, his love interest, he's also have moved up to Denton County, y'all. Can y'all believe that? Ugh. I know we're not happy about that either. I hope why couldn't he just move somewhere else? Like, I don't know. What's a good place for him to go that's not here?
Somewhere outside of Texas, please. Yeah, absolutely.
Where is he from? Kentucky? He need to go back. He need to go back where he came from, as everybody like to say. Go back. Get out of Texas. We don't want you here. But
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. He is, going through a divorce right now. So, of course, I do see that he would probably go somewhere else. But yeah, in theory, well, not even in theory, it's been pretty much reported that he's moved to Frisco. Actually, I believe it's the Denton County side of Frisco. So, yeah, that's very close, geographically speaking. And it's almost insult to injury to his now ex-wife, where he's traveling with not just a new girlfriend, but the woman that he cheated on his wife with. I'm not quite sure. There's a picture of of him. It looks like he's inside of some sort of bus or some sort of metro like car, potentially, I guess, at the DFW airport. Perhaps he was on that skyline. And there's a photo of him with his side piece, with his woman. And it's so weird because you can see he's looking into the camera, like he's realized, like, oh, someone got a photo of me. But because of the way his eyes are, one eye is looking at the camera and the other eye happens to be looking at his mistress. It's it's not just wrong, it's creepy.
He has a wandering eye, and you know what? He's probably gonna have an eye wondering at another woman. So, mistress lady, he gonna cheat on you too. Just hold tight. His wife, she's a senator, and I'm like this here. I know she feels so much better to have that man away from her now. So, congratulations, Angela Paxton, for your release. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, that's really no joke. It's really no
Yeah.
joke because I sometimes, she's a Republican, but you do have to kind of feel bad for her. You have to realize that, when her husband was getting impeached, he was getting impeached in during the Senate impeachment hearing where he was eventually acquitted on. Her wife had to sit there, even though she recused herself. She had to sit there in the Senate chamber, and they were constantly talking about. Well, Nate Paul was one thing, and that's a separate issue. But they were talking about how it came up on how he was cheating on his wife. It came up upon how our tax dollars were used to pay for Uber drivers to ship this woman he was cheating on with around. And it's going through all of that, and she still didn't divorce him. And then after the Senate hearing, where they basically said, "All right, we're not going to actually impeach Kent Paxton, we're going to acquit him," out of nowhere, it seems like she's like, "Yeah, we're going through a divorce now." It's really one of those things where it's kind of like, you already knew he was cheating on you. It was proven under oath by witnesses in the Senate chamber, and that wasn't enough to get you to divorce him then. And then all of a sudden, there's a divorce later on. That means something else happened, right? I mean, something else has got to have happened. So, yeah, in a
Yeah.
way, I almost kind of feel bad for her.
I do too. I met her, and I know she's a Republican and everything like that, but as a woman, you're being dragged and being humiliated by this man that cheated on you in front of everybody. So I'm quite sure that you know what, Angela, Senator Paxton, I'm gonna tell you what you need to do. Go get you a new one and make sure he's younger and he can look at you with both eyes.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I'm like, divorces are bad, but when you stoop to the level that he stooped to and still do it, and she probably forgave him, and he still kept doing it. I don't know. He just let's move on to something else because he's making my stomach hurt. Let's move
Agreed.
on.
Agreed.
Let's move on. But let's go to this part. Well, the 4th of July has had all kind of things going on, from the Proud Boys marching down in DC, to a young lady being harassed on a bus, to a young man wind up losing his life. And we don't even know if it was a boating accident. Did he swim? We have no idea what happened, but we definitely going to make sure that we talk about it, because Nolan Wells, nobody's really covering what happened with him. You're not seeing it on the major news network, so it's people like us that have to talk about it and make sure that people do the right thing. So we'll get to that in a few. But right now, we're going to talk about what's going on in Frisco, since we know Mr. Nasty Man is moving to Frisco. Dell, y'all have a new mayor. Talk about it.
We do. We do. We had a very interesting campaign going on in Frisco in the Frisco mayoral race. We had two candidates. We had Mark Hill, and we had Rod V. I can never pronounce the last name correctly, so I'm just going to call him Rod V. Rod was a straight up racist, and he ran on racism. He openly said that he believed that Muslims were. Well, he first would say that Sharia law is bad, and then you can clearly tell he would blindly believe that anyone who's Muslim like believes in completely straight up Sharia law. He generalized that, and then he basically was saying that all Islam is terrorism, essentially. And then, when pushed on it, he wound up in saying that all Muslims are rats, and that was said apparently. And then later on, another reporter questioned him on that and pressed it on him on that and said, "Hey, do you really believe that all of Muslims are rats?" And he did retract his statement. He retracted and said, "No, no, I shouldn't have said rats. I should have called them cockroaches." So he doubled down. Yeah, that's the guy who is running to be our mayor. He went on to another podcast, and I do not understand the logic here at all. Obviously, it's racist, but it's racist in a kind of a weird way. There's a clip of him talking to this podcaster, like I think it was an actual radio show. It was either that or a podcast, and he's was saying that Muslims are much like Hispanics, that they could not get real jobs, like like being a doctor. And it's like you could tell, like there's a video of this, and you could see the host of the podcast or radio show, whatever this was, just sitting there like, whoa. And then
I
later
will be
on,
clutching my pearls right about now.
yeah. So
Oh my
that
gosh.
video circulated all over social media, right? And we know it's legit because the video was hosted by the media company that owned that podcast. And then eventually, that company pulled that video down. And after they did that, he claimed that it wasn't real, that it was AI. Like, we're literally reaching to a point where a candidate will say something completely belligerent and nuts, and now they're going to blame AI. I mean, it's the stuff out of cartoons. Anyways, Mark Hill, uh, they're both Republicans, by the way, but Mark Hill at least
Mm.
was someone who had said, who ran on the concept of uniting Frisco. So thank goodness he won. I mean, thank goodness. We've been needing that because there's been so much horrible rhetoric being stated in our Frisco City Council during the open citizens input time, to the point that they had to cancel citizens input for the foreseeable future. We still don't have citizens input time in our Frisco City Council meetings. And I believe I went over that last time too. I think I showed some pictures or some videos from one of our previous episodes on this podcast where, there was two guys in masks armed with AR-15s right outside of Frisco City Hall. There's a kid who is waving. I'm blanking on the name of the flag. It's some sort of Spanish fascist flag from back in the day. Um, there's lots of people who have been just trolling. Um, Jake Lang showed up, for example, and had to be escorted out by police officers. Larry Brock, the January 6th rioter zip tie guy, who moved to Frisco just to run against Jared Patterson, he showed up. So there's been major points of contention within our Frisco City Council. So it is such a breath of fresh air for Mark Hill to win over this other guy, because it's something that we needed. The race was it wasn't necessarily close, but it was no landslide for sure. And so we are seeing a lot of angry comments on social media. But I will tell you this, despite all the angry comments that I'm seeing on social media, in last night at Frisco City Hall, I mean, it was a very warm welcome. City Hall was packed. Every seat was filled to the point we had people standing up because all the seats were taken. It was a very long session because Frisco has had their mayor for almost a decade. The mayor is term limited, I believe, by 9 years, and so this is Mayor Cheney was on his way out. Mayor Cheney, before he was the mayor of Frisco, served on the city council before he was mayor for quite some time. He had his family there, and one of his kids was saying, "Yeah, my dad's been doing this job longer than I've been alive," and like his son, I think, is like
Wow.
50 years old. So because he was on this city council before being the mayor. So the ceremony was long but necessary for that. and everyone had got some good speeches in. Mihaela Palesa, our state house representative, who's a Democrat, showed up, along with almost every one of our county commissioners. County commissioner, I'm not sure if Diane was there, but I did see Kevin Falconer was there. So was Andy Eads, and Commissioner from Precinct 1, Ryan, was also there as well. And I shook hands with them briefly in passing. It was good to see them. We at the very end of the ceremony, everyone had the choice to leave or hang out. A lot of us tried to walk up on stage to get close to Mark, just to do like a quick photo op. It was kind of a mosh pit, but in there, of course, was Judge Andy Eads from our county commissioners court, along with Ryan and Kevin Falconer. I shook Kevin Falconer's hand, so it's a really good sense of community, and it was a really, really, really breath of fresh air. Really good to see. Everyone in Frisco right now is happy, I believe, with this turnout for this race. I mean, obviously not everyone, because there was quite a few people who did vote for the other guy, but more of us voted for the calmer head to prevail, and so that feels really nice in the Frisco area. We needed this. We needed a win, and we got it.
About time. About time. Well, with all eyes on Frisco, Frisco has a bad rap as being a racist city. So he has his work cut out to change the painting on the wall that people are looking at with Frisco, especially with the Camelo Anthony case that happened out there. So he got his work cut out. So Frisco has a long way to go. People still going to think that that's a racist city. So congratulations to your new mayor. Good luck to you.
Yeah. No, we need it, and I excuse me. I do hope that we're going to change for the better.
Yeah. You all right, Dale?
Sorry, I was having a coughing fit.
Okay. Well, of course, we're going to talk about a couple of things that has happened briefly. So, of course, the 4th of July, they had a supposed to had a fireworks show at normal time, and of course, I'm kind of happy about it. They wound up having to have a fireworks show at midnight, so a lot of people like myself would have been having to go to bed, but they had to stay up to midnight to watch the fireworks show in DC because they had some bad weather that came through and somebody wasn't able to give his long dried out speech. So we are all happy that Mother Nature took control.
Yeah, I saw a joke on that where I believe Donald Trump said something. I can't remember what it was, but he essentially was angry, like, at the weather, and someone says, "Oh man, it's just like that old man yells at cloud meme." I'm not sure if you know the meme. There's a meme of The Simpsons where Grandpa Simpson is having his fist up in the air and he's angry and he's yelling at a cloud. And there's like a headline is "Old man yells at cloud," and yeah, it's really is actually one of those moments. But
Yeah, that was I can just see him now doing that. I really can. But they also had company down there. So the guys who like to cover their face and wear khaki looking pants and a black shirt with a gator mask on to cover up who they are because they probably work with us. You just never know. He might be your neighbor. But they were down there marching and doing their thing and nobody really was paying them attention. I'm like, at this point, go home, Roger. Go home. Nobody wants you. Go home.
yeah, it's so ironic because these same people were angry at masks during COVID, but now all of a sudden they're completely fine with masks, I guess. The other thing too that's always so striking to me is that if it was the other way around, if Democrats were to mask up and go to DC in that type of fashion, that they would either one pull people's masks off, or at the very least b they would be able to track those people down. Because let's be real here, everywhere that you travel, whether it be by plane or just being on the road, especially in DC, because in DC there's cameras everywhere. And with these flock cameras that we got nowadays, and AI that's tracking everyone that's connected to all the cameras, like they would be able to figure out, like, I'm sure that the CIA, whoever and or whoever has access to the flock camera data, they'd be able to backtrack where each of these individuals came from and figure out who they are based on that, you know? But of course, this administration is not going to do that. But I swear to you, if it were Democrats to do the same thing, they absolutely would. They absolutely would. And I'm seeing the same playbook that we've seen every single time. Mike Johnson comes out and he says, "Oh, it's Antifa. They're just paid actors." And again, I see this over and over again. Every time there's someone wearing a mask, they say, "Oh, it's a Democrat. They're just posing as Republicans. They're paid actors." And it's like, well, if you honestly believe that, then why aren't you ripping their masks off? You should want to
Exactly.
expose the so-called Antifa if you really believe it's Antifa. Pull their masks off if you genuinely believe that. But of course they won't because it's just their excuse. It's so frustrating.
And you know, not to cut you off, Dale, you know, the scariest part is they might be your doctor or lawyer or teacher, you know, or even your minister that's out there spewing all that hate. So I'm like this here. Why are you afraid to show your face? Show your face. Let us see who you are. You know, what's the point of covering your face up? We know you hate us. We just want
Yeah,
to see who you are.
yeah,
I would love to
yeah.
see that. Who are you? But that's leading into what happened also on 4th of July. It's so much that's going on about this young lady who was on a bus and she was surrounded by them, men sitting in the back, they're standing up around her, they're in the front, somebody's taking a video of her. I wish if anybody know who she is, please let me know. I would love to try to get her on here but and found out more information because I'm curious too, like a lot of people are. What were you thinking? Now, y'all know I have a lot of thoughts, and some of it is not good. So I'm not gonna say it on air for somebody to record me and say, "Hey, this is what she said." But my thoughts would be, I'll be first of all, what are you doing? And why are you surrounding me? Get your little mustard tail away from me. That's the kind of things that I probably would wind up saying. And was she scared? Did she think that, did they follow her off the bus? Why were they on that bus? You know, I want to know. And I'm quite sure a lot of people want to know, why were you on that bus? Was she the only one on the bus besides the driver? It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I would be terrified. I'd be terrified even as a white man and sitting in that situation. Yeah, I remember it reminds me of a very similar situation happening previously. I think yeah, that's right. It was right after January 6th. And a whole bunch of January 6th rioters were in an airplane and they were flying home. And there's this one black woman, she's sitting like on the window seat and she has her phone into selfie mode and she's recording as she's like getting wide-eyed and like you can tell she's just genuinely worried because everyone around her in the airplane is yelling Trump, 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 USA, USA. And she's sitting there like, what? Like, they're not saying anything, but visually you can see in her face, she's like, wow, I do not feel comfortable here. But I mean, that situation is even more complicated in the concept of when you're in an airplane, you're trapped with those people for quite some time.
There's
But
nowhere to go.
yeah, it's sad because we didn't see this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, obviously we saw this kind of stuff back in what the 1960s, but
Yeah,
I
the
feel
50s
like
and the
we
60s.
yeah I feel like at least for a stretch there, like maybe the early 2000s, that we sometimes heard of these kind of things, but not to this frequency and to this extent. And it's people like this seem to be emboldened by this current administration. You know, particularly when it comes to racism. I know that people get mad at me when they say, "Hey, Dale, don't call Donald Trump a racist." And my response to that would be, "Well, the guy celebrated Black History Month by putting the heads of Barack and Michelle Obama onto the bodies of primates. So, yeah, the guy's a racist, and he's emboldening everyone else around him as well, and everyone who watches him through social media and on the television. They think that it's okay now to be a little bit like Trump, and that's, I think, just poisoning a lot of people's minds. It's deeply unfortunate.
I agree. I agree. But you know, so you know something, Dell, and a lot of people are starting to wake up. I know he hates the word woke, but a lot of people were I'm not gonna say sleepwalking. I just told my cousin this last night. I'm like, they were snoring.
Hmm.
So they were in a deep sleep and they were snoring, and they're now starting to wait a minute. What just happened here? Things are starting to affect them, especially, let's talk about grocery prices are way too high. You go to the gas station and you got to figure out, do I want to put $10 of gas in it? How far will this $10 go if I put $10 in it, if I work 15 minutes away? You got to think about things. Do I really need this extra cup of coffee? Do I need to start packing my lunch? Kids are out of school right now, and we don't have a SNAP program for them for the summer program in Texas. We don't have that. So a lot of local churches and communities are trying to help the young kids, to eat. You want them to grow and have their bellies full. But we got a governor that anti-children. I mean, that's the only way I can say it. He said he's pro-life, but he doesn't act like he's pro-life. So, that's my little saying on that.
I would say they're pro birth but not pro life. Is kind of what it comes down to. They're pro life until you're born. It's deeply unfortunate. You were saying that people weren't just asleep, but they were snoring. I absolutely agree, and I think I've seen the following happen with a lot of my family members and extended family members. They would say, "Oh, I don't turn on the television anymore because everything on the television is always negative." You know what I mean? Like everything on the television is negative. So I don't follow the news anymore. They would say, like as this administration, came to be. But they can only say that for so long until, like you said, they start being affected. They start getting affected at the gas pump. They start getting affected with the groceries. You can't blame Democrats when Republicans control every aspect of government from both chambers, not just the U.S. House and Senate, but also in Texas, the state House and state Senate, and governorship and presidency. Every aspect of this government is controlled by Republicans, so there is no excuse, and they can't just turn the television off anymore when they can feel it's affecting them. I'm also seeing on social media a lot. Some people will say, I'm a Republican and there's a 0% chance I'm voting for Ken Paxton. So I am seeing things like that. I think that there are people who are getting like really tired, particularly when it comes to certain issues, gas, groceries, and the fact that we're in this optional war in the Middle East again. It's affecting people's
Yeah, it
lives.
stopped and now we're back in.
Yeah. And I almost forgot about the Epstein files because we keep getting so distracted with everything. But yeah, I think that's been something that's been agitating a lot of Americans on both sides of the aisle. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So let me bring this up. So I don't know if we are RIPing, but Mitch McConnell might be deceased.
yeah,
And they're trying to hold that seat so they don't have to have a special election. He's brain dead, but they're not pulling the plug on him. So I don't know. I just, whew. Democrats in the House, please do something. Please find out get the information and calls for a special election, because this, I'm like everybody else, and I'm like, my words are not together right now because there's so many different words I want to say. But at the end of the day, people are tired of all the drama. It's like one of those Dallas soap operas that continues to go on and on and on, and then you sit up there and wonder who shot JR, and JR is alive, and then we find out that Bobby wasn't dead, he's alive, and it was just a dream. I'm like, can somebody please wake me out of this nightmare of a dream that we're in? Because I want to go back to normal, whatever that is. It was before Trump. I want normal back to where people actually treat people with respect and with dignity, doesn't mind helping people. But I can tell you this, on the 4th of July, I was struggling. I had surgery last year on my shoulder, and I'm still working on it, trying to get my arm back right. And this gentleman, and I know he was probably a Republican, but he actually sat there and helped me and lift my stuff up and put it on the bus. So shout out to him. Thank you for your help. And also he took it off the bus for me as well. So we were getting shuttled down there in where was I at? Little Am, not Little Am, Flower Mound. I was being shuttled down there in Flower Mound, and this gentleman helped me out. So there are some people that, like I said, that are waking up, Dale, and they're trying to do the right thing. But as far as this political nightmare that we're in, I just want to wake up. I just want people to wake up and do the right thing because we got a bunch of rapists. We got a bunch of nasty people in office right now that need to be gone. Basically,
Yeah,
they
no,
need to be gone.
absolutely. And when I know we started the topic of Mitch McConnell. He probably should have left a long time ago. This is a repeated instance we keep seeing over and over again. Happened on our side of the aisle too. I believe was it Dianne Feinstein who passed
Yes,
away from California. At a certain point, it's like, guys, enjoy your retirement. But some of these individuals just don't want to let go of power. There's another example here in
yeah,
Texas. I cannot remember the position. I don't know if it was Congress or not, but there was someone who I guess was like in a nursing home for a while and just like was like not
Jane.
being, yeah, that's right. So it's interesting. I will say this in terms of trying to get individuals to just go ahead and retire. The state level in Texas does the following for state House representatives and state senators, which I found interesting. They actually do give an incentive for you to retire after I think it's after 10 years of service as a state House or state senator, or 7 years of service. I think if you're above the age of 55, because state House lawmakers and state senators make almost nothing in terms of income.
Literally.
They make seven, I think, believe it's 7,000 a year, not 70,
Mhm.
seven. That's less than minimum wage. But
Yeah,
if you work for 10 years or 7 years, if you're about 55 years old, you get this really nice pension for the rest of your life, which I found to be very interesting because I know in our Texas State Senate District 30 race in the last cycle, we were surprised. We're like, wow, Senator Drew Springer is retiring. But I wonder why he's retiring. Then we realized, oh, it's because he's going to get a real sweet pension now. You don't get paid as a state senator until you get that pension. So there's actually an incentive at the state level in Texas for state House reps and state senators to actually retire. Now, it's probably a little bit different in Congress because I don't know. I just get the vibe and feeling that congressmen are pretty rich. I do believe they make a salary of, I think it's 170 something K a year. So they make a pretty
yeah.
decent salary. But yeah, no, we're seeing Mitch McConnell. It's just yet another case, just like Dianne Feinstein, just like the other, as I mentioned in here in Texas. Some people just, it's like they don't want to let go of power. I don't get it. I would just enjoy retirement.
So it sounds like you're saying like a lot of people are, and I kind of agree with it too, that there should be a term limit. I'm definitely for term limits and age limit.
Yeah,
When you get a certain age, I think that it should be an age limit too, that who can serve. But you want to be kind of careful with that part. Do you want to keep them in as like mentors to mentor the next person? Be a, I don't know, consultant or something like that. How can they continue on working? Like we just lost Al Green, and that man is a legend. So what is he gonna do? Is he gonna go ahead and just go off into the sunset, or is he gonna continue on being active? Because that's somebody, people like him, you don't want to lose that knowledge that they have, because we're going through some trying times right now, and I feel like you really don't want to lose that knowledge.
yeah.
You can kind of like work together for a good better for the better good.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting. I've seen this topic come up in the past, and a lot of people say, "Oh, it's controversial to bring up age limits." And I'd say, well, not too much when you consider the current precedent that we have. Case in point, we actually already do have age limits right now for, I believe it's the Supreme Court, the state level in Texas. I know that we recently had a race where one of the candidates, someone was saying, "Hey, look, don't vote for this guy. If you vote for this guy, he won't be able to fill out his entire term because he's going to turn. I forget what the age limit is, but he's going to hit that age limit like within like the next like year and a half or something like that." So, but you know, also I would say to anyone who says that age limits are uh, probably something that should not even be considered, I would say, well, we already have minimum age limits. You can't run for office until I think it's what 35 years old. You can be drafted at the age of 18, but you can't run for office till I believe it was 35, depending upon the position. So we already do have these limits in place right now, just not across the board. Where it is the most where I draw most issue, where there's a much more of a demand for these types of limits, are specifically with the Supreme Court of the United States, because if you think about it, there is incentive for the administration to pick someone who is not just loyal to them, but the youngest. Since there is no age limit and there's no term limit and it's a lifetime appointment, it would be more logical for any administration to try to find someone who's very, very young, despite whatever good skill or bad skill they have. The agenda here, or the most logical way to go about it, if you really cared about being more politically savvy rather than actually caring about quality, or just to get someone who's very young, right? So that kind of hinders the system and the purpose of the system, which is supposed to be get someone who's of good quality, right? Where age is going to probably matter more than quality in that particular situation. But no, I hear people argue both ways, and I think it's always an interesting conversation to have when we talk about age limits. But when we're seeing people like Dianne Feinstein pass away and Mitch McConnell, who we don't even know if is alive right now, I mean, it's this topic keeps coming up every time this happens, right?
Yeah, it keeps happening, and it's like that's just like, yeah, I agree with you. I'm gonna leave it like that. I agree with you on that, Dale. It's, eventually, we're gonna have to put some. Hey, if you're over 75, then you might need to consider retiring from office. We need new blood in here, but we want to also keep you in a different role. Maybe you can do a different role with the government, and help. Maybe we can come up with something like that. But y'all, we got to move on, Dale, to the next one. And this is the one that you and several other Democrats went out to go to the county commissioner in Denton, Texas, to speak about countywide voting. Of course, I'll be there soon, but I want to hear about what happened. How did you feel, and do you feel like you made an impact?
Well, first I'll tell you how it went and how it felt. It was a good time. It's always good to speak to the Denton County Commissioners Court. I know it's been a while. I think it's been almost about a year since I've spoken during the citizens input time there. So it was good to be back. There's a large group of us. You can't really tell through the cameras too well. But Jane Scholes and a whole bunch of precinct chairs of the Denton County Democratic Party and other activists as well. Sandy Swan, for example, from Progressive Toastmasters. We were all there. And we decided that when the speaker was going to come up and speak, that all of us would stand up. And so basically, you can't see it from the camera, but behind the speakers, myself and my friend who spoke, there was a bunch of precinct chairs just standing up within the well of the room. So that was good because it's a way to kind of make a statement or a point. It's a way to say like, hey, look, this person's not just speaking for himself, but also all of us who are also standing in this room. So that was really good to see and do that. I wound up actually leaving all my notes at home, so I had to do it completely ad hoc. But of course, I brought up the common sense issues of, we have county-wide voting during the early voting period, but not in the last day to vote. That's very confusing to people. We don't have county-wide voting on election day, but essentially that means the rules change on the last day to vote, which is confusing. And I brought up how it's particularly a problem in Frisco, because in Frisco, you see half of our cities in Denton County, the other half is in Collin County. Now, if you jump county lines, of course, you're going to have to get redirected back into your county. Even with even with the county-wide voting, you still have to vote within your county, right? So it's very easy, particularly for Frisco residents, to accidentally jump the county line. And the problem is this, particularly on election day, is that if you're a Denton County resident in Frisco, you accidentally jump over to the Collin County side. The Collin County election workers are not going to necessarily know the correct location that you have to go to in order to vote in Denton County. They may know of the voting locations, but they're probably not going to know which ones that you specifically have to go to. And so we're seeing Denton County residents who live in Frisco accidentally jumping the county line, getting redirected, and then showing up to the wrong voting location on election day and the Frisco side of Denton County, and then getting redirected again. And it's so frustrating to so many people. It makes some people just straight up livid and angry. And there's some college kids who say, man, I got to make it to class. I guess I can't vote today. You know, I know Jane Schultz was talking about one time. I don't know which city this was in. I don't know if it's in Frisco or somewhere else. Probably more so west side, because I know that's where she lives. But she said there was a guy who was on a breathing machine, he's in a wheelchair, had to be hydraulically lifted out of his car. He rolled into the voting location and was told, I'm sorry, sir, you can't vote here. You got to go somewhere else. You know, it's really tough on the disabled when you have to be redirected, because not everyone is mobile. You know what I mean? And not everyone has all the time in their life to be redirected. A lot of people have work. You know, life can get in the way. People have kids. So, you know, I was trying to tell our fellow county commissioners, like, guys, this feels like voter suppression. It feels like voter suppression. Now, in terms of asking, like, well, was there an impact? I think they understand and they know. Will this court choose to give us countywide voting on election day? I highly doubt it, given the fact that the chair of the Denton County Republican Party, Melinda Preston, has been adamantly against countywide voting on election day. She has been advocating against countywide voting on election day since long before she was a chair. She used to just be a precinct chair, and she would still come to the county commissioners court back then. But now she's the chair now. And we've seen the power that Melinda Preston has, particularly when it comes to the case of Jared Patterson, for example. Melinda Preston and her precinct chairs voted to censure Jared Patterson. They attempted to give him what is called a penalty 3, which would have barred him from running for office. So when you realize that the Madam Chair of the Denton County Republican Party has that much power, where they can actually attempt to, now they didn't actually bar Jared, the state, I'm blanking on the name, but essentially the statewide executive committee decided to not go along with it. But, you know, it was close. And I can imagine that if you're a candidate running for office, particularly if you're going through a re-election, which three of them are going through two of them are. Diane lost her primary. But you can imagine that if they were to come alongside with countywide voting on election day, despite Melinda Preston, the chair of the Denton County Republican Party, I would imagine that they would probably feel a little awkward and or vulnerable, considering. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely would not even bother to expect it before a primary. I thought to myself, maybe after, now that the Republican primaries are done, maybe they might consider it. But I also know that, you know, Melinda Preston holds the Republican Party with an iron fist right now in Denton County. So I think the path forward for getting us countywide voting on election day is to flip the Denton County Commissioners Court. We got 3 positions up for re-election. There's 5 positions total, right? There are 4 county commissioners and 1 judge. 3 of the 5 are up for re-election. So it is possible that we can flip the Denton County Commissioners Court this November. Will it happen? That will yet to be seen. I certainly hope so. I have seen that in the primary, while I did not have a primary opponent, I was still on the primary ballot, and same thing with my opponent, Julie Luke. It was interesting that I did get more votes than her in the primary, which feels pretty good. You know, it sends that, like, oh, there's some real motivation here. At the same time, I cannot give my hopes up, and I am still worried because, after all, despite me getting more votes in the primary, if you look at the total number of Republicans who participated in the governor's race on the Republican side versus total number of Democrats who voted in the governor's race, there were still more Republicans than Democrats. This is referring to countywide. So, and the numbers may be a little bit different, precinct to precinct, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. But in terms of the effectiveness, I believe that they know in their heart of hearts, but I don't think they're probably going to really budge on it out of fear of repudiation from Melinda Preston. But we will see, and we're going to come back. I'm going to be back there this coming Tuesday. I think a bunch of us maybe. So it'll be good to speak again, and it'll be good to finally bring my notes this time, so I don't have to do it ad hoc. So looking forward to Tuesday.
Well, I will definitely see you on next Tuesday. I guess I need to sign up to speak, but you'll definitely see me there. The craziest thing is you say Melinda Preston, the county chair. People are asking the question, where's the Democrat county chair? Why is she not speaking out? And I'm quite sure she rules her county with the iron fist as well. But at some point, we're going to have to stand up unanimously. And I think that's what the Jane Schultz and the group are doing right now is standing up. But we probably need to get our county chair involved too, to kind of like, because I'm quite sure she loves to shut stuff down. So that would be a great opportunity to have her support to for the county, because Denton is growing. If y'all have not been to Denton area, the county is growing. We're starting to have a lot more food chains coming to all the suburban areas. We're getting more roads. We have HEBs popping up, and different central markets are popping up in some of our areas. And we got a slew of people that are actually moving from New York, from California, and they all coming to Denton because Denton is growing, and it's family. It's a family. I think of it as a kind of like a family county. You know, we got our dysfunctional stuff going on, but at the end of the day, I think that it's home. It's home.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
raised three kids here, and I love this county, and I think that that's one of the main reasons why people move here. But we definitely need to upgrade and stop being afraid, because I was an election judge, Dale, and I can tell you, and I worked in different areas in our county, I can tell you that I've had to probably turn away at least about 40 people within maybe three or four general elections that I worked. And most of them are elderly people and the college students that were, especially over in the Louisville, Carrollton area, where the kids are having to take Uber to get to the voting place, or whatever ride share, and they find out they're in the wrong precinct, we having to turn them away. Or those that are working in restaurants and they finally was able to get out, even though they're supposed to be able to go and vote, but they come late. They come there at 6 o'clock, and we're having to tell them, hey, you're at the wrong precinct, and the precinct that they need to go to may be 40 minutes away. Will they vote? Probably not. And just like you said about Dallas County, Collin, and Denton, kind of like right there, connected, one county over, one step over, you could be in the wrong county, and it's going to take you at least 45 minutes to get to where you're supposed to go. So I truly believe in a cause. I believe that we have to have countywide voting on election day, because yes, Dale, you are absolutely right. It is voter suppression to deny the folks what they want. And that's why our tops are they listening to us? That's the question. Are they listening? We got to
I,
continue on making them listen. I hear and didn't, because people are tired of having to figure out where they're supposed to go. And keep in mind, Melinda thinks that it's not affecting her people. I guess she's never worked the election, and I'm quite sure that she really doesn't understand how it works, but it's affecting her people too. So
yeah. Yeah, yeah, as you were mentioning, our chair Delia Parker Mims, I know that she cares about this issue very much. She has been interviewed by I'm blanking on which newspaper now, but I remember seeing a news article where they asked her straight up about countywide voting, and of course she's all in favor for countywide voting on election day. She cares very much because, after all, before she was our chair, she actually ran to be a county commissioner. She was actually trying to take on Bobby
She
Mitchell.
did.
And then after Bobby Mitchell won, she then ran to be our chair, our Democratic chair of our party. So we'll definitely get some words from her for sure, along with other precinct chairs. Will they listen? I I believe they are listening because they can't help but to hear us because we're raising our voices on this, right? And also, I got to pull up this clip. I don't have it on me right now, but I'll do some. I have like a homework assignment to find this clip. I've seen it once before, where it was a couple of years ago. It was before Kevin Faulconer was the commissioner for Precinct 2. His predecessor was a guy named Rob Marchant. And Rob Marchant actually was kind of getting a little flustered and a little annoyed over the concepts of countywide voting. He said something along the lines of, "quote Why does this keep coming up?" End quote. This is because there were some Republican precinct chairs that were bringing it up, and apparently, like they didn't want countywide voting even during the early voting period, which is a very extreme uh, position to have. But they were making those demands to the point where even Rob Marchant was getting a little annoyed over it. I think they know. I think they know. And the thing is this: some of the precinct chairs some of the Republican precinct chairs are demanding that we get rid of the electronic voting tabulators. But they know if they did that, they know if every vote had to be counted by human hand, that would be way too expensive. You
Mm.
would have to, because the elections have to be done by a certain deadline, right? And so that would require them to hire an army of people to do ballot counting. And if they don't get the election certified within a certain deadline, the county can get sued. So they're not gonna actually go as far as to remove electronic voting tabulators because they're very fiscally aware, and they won't go that far. But I'm not quite sure if they will actually give us the county-wide voting on election day unless we turn this into a campaign issue, you know. But I think they do hear us. I think they do hear us because we're making sure that they hear us because we're showing up and we're continuing to still talk about it.
Yeah. You know what, Dell? As that old show says, we're not going to go silently into the night. We're
Yes.
going to speak up and we're going to stand up for the people of Denton. So those of y'all that's outside of Denton, we're having issues with having countywide voting, and we want to make sure that every single person that lives in Denton County have access to go vote in wherever they're at on election day instead of having to go to your precinct. I think it's outdated and we need to move with the time. Time has changed. So let's go move on because we only have a couple of more minutes left and talk about this very. And I saved this for the last episode here about Nolan Wells, young 18-year-old, played football for in high school. And matter of fact, he was at a D2 college out in Mississippi area, and he was getting ready to go do a workout this week, and he went on 4th of July with his friends, and they came back and brought his phone back, but he didn't come back. And when the mom realized that, hey, where's my son? And they brought his phone back to her. So I would have been thinking that that was very suspicious as well. And she wound up asking for help because he didn't come back home. They had no way of contacting him because the group of friends, they took his phone or he left his phone. We don't know exactly what happened as far as with his phone. We just know that Nolan did not have his phone, and it looks very suspicious because there are a lot of lies that's going on. And I feel like there's a huge cover up because one of the kids' mom is a physician and also a judge in several counties. So it was covered up. Why? We have no idea. What happened to Nolan? And here's the thing, Dale, it's not being broadcast on the news like Camilla Anthony's was, what happened to that young man, but they're quietly trying to sweep this on the rug. And y'all, if you have any information, say something. We got to keep this young man up, keep him in the news, keep him in the algorithm, keep going. Because the simple fact is, this young man died, and we have no idea how he died. Did he drown? Did they knock him out? What happened? Were they hearts playing in the water? What happened? We don't know if he drowned. We don't know if he was injured on land. We have no idea what happened to him. All we know is we have a 18-year-old young man, black young man, that was with a group of kids that did not look like him. All of them came back, and he just so happened didn't, but his phone did. Houston, we got a problem. Something happened. And of course, shout out to the Cajun Navy. They were the ones who found the body the next day. Now, I have my thoughts on that, but I'm going to hold off until we get more details on what's happening. And of course, they started erasing their text messages, pictures, whatever that could connect them with this young man. They've already deleted it. But I guess they don't realize that stuff that's deleted, can be found. I mean, the government is watching everything that we do, and they listen to your conversation. So it's going to be found out. Whatever you did, whatever y'all did, or whatever happened, you might as well just step up and say, hey, this is what happened, and face the consequences instead of wasting taxpayers' dollars trying to figure out what happened. Because something happened, you know what happened, and you need to step up, be a man, and step up and say something.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I didn't know the detail about the cell phone. That's very interesting. But yeah, yeah. I, hopefully, they should be able to figure this case out. Like you said, a lot of our information is being monitored. So yeah, when I say a lot of information is being monitored, I can give you one weird example. Not to go off topic, but there was a murder that happened right by a Amazon Alexis one time, and so the police said, "Hey, um, Amazon, we're going to subpoena you for any audio or anything that was heard during this certain time on this particular Alexis." And at first they're like, "Oh, we don't listen to, we don't spy on people." And they're like, "No, wait, seriously, like this is a subpoena. If you do have that information and you're lying, then you're going to be in legal trouble unless you actually give us that data." Then they're like, "Okay, here you go." Like they actually do just record everything. And so
Yeah.
they were able to actually solve a murder by giving the information from the Alexa to the police. Um, this case is interesting because it's on the water, but hopefully something's not quite right about the story, right? Something, even if it was an accident, like someone knows something who's not talking, but hopefully the authorities will be able to figure it out soon.
Yes, because you know what, Dale, I'm gonna tell you this. I am so tired of having to give. I have two black sons, and I hate to have to give them the talk. You know,
Yeah,
of who you with. And it's sad that if something happens to them, the news media is not gonna pick it up because they're not white,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
gonna get swept under the rug. You know, and it's like it's just really hard. You constantly, and it's just like what happened in Sandy Hook or down in Uvalde, sorry for your loss. Parents are tired of hearing that, sorry for your loss, my condolence. My heart goes out to this mom and this father because this should have never happened to this young man. He had a future. And, a lot of times it doesn't. I'm gonna pull away from the race thing because everything seems like sometimes it is race, and then sometimes people are just jealous and just Evil. This young man, 18 years old, had a future. And somebody on that boat probably did not like the fact that he was breaking away from the group and he had a future. And they took his life. That's my thought is what happened.
Yeah,
People
I
that are
mean,
jealous, that can look exactly like you will do something to you.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to speculate, but I can at least say this with at least some level of certainty. If it was an accident, at least give the dignity to the parents to let them know what happened, you know? Because it's not just that he lost his life, which is a tragedy, but it's also leaving the parents in a situation where they don't know what happened. That's just salt to the wound of someone who lost their child, right? And so hopefully information will come out upon what happened. Hopefully we can all get to the bottom of this. You were talking about how it is true that black versus white sometimes will have a certain level of media attention. One of the best examples I can give you is actually the John Benet Ramsey case, where she was murdered, and then after that, I think it was about a week before, was it? There was another black girl who also was murdered, like right in the same neighborhood, but there's no coverage of that. But, anyways, I know we're coming close to our time, but yeah, that's certainly something important to talk about.
Yeah, we'll wind up talking over the more information that we wind up getting on it. We're definitely gonna keep Nolan Wells' name out there because somebody knows something, and we're gonna make sure we put a light on it. But thank y'all for y'all support. Thank you, Dale, for coming back on. we missed you. I missed you, man.
It's
But
good to be back.
thank you all for subscribing. We got a bunch of new subscribers. Thank you. If you like the show, please subscribe, share. We come on here Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Now, the closer it gets for us to get to our hitting boots on the ground, we might not be on here. So I'm just giving y'all a heads up, but we'll probably do some live shows or something like that for you, give you a couple of little treats. But we love y'all. Thank y'all for supporting. Let's talk about it, Steph, and we'll be back next week to talk about what's going on in the neighborhood. Dale, you want to close us out?
Sure. So I will say this. We have a breakfast club coming up in Frisco at the Frisco Democratic Club. We have friscodemocrats.org is where you can find out more information on that, where you can meet like-minded individuals. Aside from that, Monday as well, we have Progressive Leaders Toastmasters. Progressive Leaders Toastmasters is a Toastmasters group where you can be free and open and not nervous to talk about politics. It's a political driven Toastmasters club. If you want to find out more information about us, we meet every single Monday at 7 p.m., not just in person, but also online as well. So if you just want to check it out, see what the format is like, you can join us on Zoom. Again, you can find us on Facebook by looking up Progressive Leaders Toastmasters. Aside from that, my name is Dale Frey, and I'm running for office for the position of the Denton County Clerk. It's a county-wide race, so if you live anywhere in Denton County, I will be on your ballot this coming November. Again, my name is Dale Frey, running to be your county clerk. You can find out more information about me at freyfortexas.com. That's FREY for Texas.com. And as always, Stephanie, thank you for having me, and it's good to be back.
Well, folks, we're going to call this the end and we'll see you next week. And of course, if you want to follow me for my campaign, go to www.draperfortexas.com. We'll see you next Wednesday. Y'all have a good night.